That slide deck transition makes me really anxious. I just want to compliment Letty on how gracefully she did that. My name is Deirdre Costello, Director of UX Research at EBSCO. I want to talk to you today about Harry Potter personas. So let's talk about how we got to that point. So first, here are some of the methodologies in our toolkit and the methodologies that we have used to study high school, college, and graduate students. So first, when we do a deep dive on an audience like college students, we start with secondary research, which is our fancy name for a lit review. We want to know what else has been asked of this audience, what else has been found. We also tend to use primarily qualitative methods, so this is a nice way to get a look at some of the quantitative methods that have been used and see how our findings line up. When we started sitting down with college students, we heard that a lot of the habits that they were using to conduct research at the college level, they had brought with them from high school. So we said, okay, we need to get in the room with some high school students. High school students are teenagers, in case you didn't know that. They don't want to sit across the table from someone who's closer in age to their mom and talk to them about how they do their homework. So we sent video cameras. We did a video diary study. We sent video cameras all over the country, high bandwidth areas, low bandwidth areas, and had them actually talk to the camera about how they do research and do some tasks that they videoed for us. Got great data that way because they're so much more comfortable talking to a camera than they are to a grown-up. And as young as I like to think of myself, I am still a grown-up to a high school student. Contextual inquiry. This one has really become the star in our crown because this is an in-depth qualitative methodology where you are going to your participant, to the environment that they have identified as where they do research, and you are watching them do research. They actually teach you how they do research. So you see the whole organic environment. We've been to coffee shops, libraries, dorm rooms. Not too many dorm rooms. I try to avoid that if I can because I did enough of that in college. But enough that we really get a sense of how college students are doing the whole ecosystem of college students' research process. Participatory design. So we had about 20 college students up to the EBSCO campus, which is in Ipswich. Christmas break of last year, we gave them pizza. If you want a bunch of college students in the same room at the same time, pizza is a really good incentive. And we had them actually design their own search results experience. That was really cool. We saw some things that we hadn't thought of before. We had some really great findings around that, and it gave us the framework we needed to engage in a year-long, multi-method, iterative project, really examining how students want to interact with search results and what that ideal search result experience is. So I want to harp a little bit more on contextual inquiry in case you didn't get how important it was to us in the first place. And I actually see some EBSCO stakeholders in the crowd who have participated in this. So if you could validate that for me, that would be great. Thank you. What I love about contextual inquiry is that it lets you see the tools and services students are using to do research. You may see your own logo up there. You'll also see a lot of things that students are finding on the open web that they find helpful. But it also lets you see all of the products and services that they're using to live the rest of their life online. So you get to see how those things influence how they want to use the things that they find on the library website. So I'm going to tell you right now, Google is the gold standard for search, Wikipedia is the gold standard for structured content, Amazon is the gold standard for filtering, YouTube is the gold standard for video. If you don't know, now you know. Our biggest learning, though, was really not about a platform, search results, a solution. It was around students' motivation. So when I say that, what I mean is that students' motivation to conduct research and really to do anything that they're being asked to do that's not of their own volition exists on a continuum. At one end is external motivation, meaning they're doing things a certain way because they're afraid of the consequences of doing them a different way. To internal motivation, meaning they're doing things a certain way because they understand that there's intrinsic value to doing things that way. It gets them somewhere, and ultimately it's part of who they are. So when we finished our student contextual inquiry, I had just finished listening to all the Harry Potter audiobooks, which is an experience I can highly recommend, both the British version and the American version. So we mapped our personas. We don't use personas that often. I'm happy to talk about why. They're a pretty high investment. But it's restarting, but I don't need the slides to talk about it. It's fine. Okay, here we go.
Oh, that's fun.
They're a pretty high investment. We have noticed an uptick in requests following the premiere of the Harry Potter personas, but also as personas becomes a bigger and bigger buzzword in this community. One of the reasons that we chose to do personas for this project was because we felt this learning about motivation was so important, and we wanted to showcase all the different forms that it takes. Because students actually move from external to internal motivation in a number of different times, in a number of different ways, and I will talk to you about all of those ways right now. These students are also dynamic, so it's not just one character static through a story, it's 7 years of students' lives, so you do actually get to see how they turn that corner from external to internal motivation. Hermione. Hermione is actually naturally internally motivated. She is doing the reading for every course before the school year has even started. She absolutely understands that there's intrinsic value to learning and to doing her assignments, and doing her assignments the way that she's supposed to do them. Hermione is a reader, she's an overachiever, and she's a rule follower to a fault. I can't remember the exact quote, but she has this incredible quote where, we can't leave school to do that. We might die, or worse, break the rules. I will actually be embodying Hermione today, just because I tried on every other character and none of them worked for me. I, like many librarians, if you know any librarians, ask them, I identify most strongly with Hermione. I am absolutely naturally internally motivated. It's how I ended up where I am. But Hermione, I hate to tell you, is the exception rather than the rule. And I'm not sure what kind of organization you work in, but when you work in the field of information science, we often assume that most people are Hermione because most of us are Hermione. That is absolutely not the case. So let's talk about Ron. Ron is absolutely externally motivated. He has a very supportive home environment. He hates homework. So when you see him doing his homework, it's because he's terrified that his mother is going to yell at him, not because he believes there's intrinsic value in doing that homework in and of itself. So he turns to Hermione. He relies on a friend. He relies on Hermione not for the answers, but to help him get it done the right way. We met a number of Rons who make the transition from external to internal motivation with the social support of a friend. I don't want to scare anyone, but the majority of these Rons were in pre-med. They talked about the experience of organic chemistry. That is one of the hardest experiences that a pre-med undergrad is going to have. So they talk about getting an assignment, they're in that org chem classroom, and they look around the room for the student who's going to complete the assignment the day it's assigned rather than the day before it's due. And they say, I'm going to ask them to help me, not for the answers, but to help me get it right. And it's through modeling their behaviors on this friend and seeing those behaviors be successful that they say, okay, you know what? There is actually intrinsic value to doing this the way I'm being told to do it. I'm going to start doing more of those behaviors in other fields and other classes. Okay, I want to talk about Neville Longbottom. Neville happens to be my favorite, and not just because the actor got very attractive over the course of the movies, although that's true. Neville is naturally very nervous. He's clumsy. He cannot walk into a classroom without tripping over something or being yelled at by a professor. He has very little support at home. We absolutely met a Neville. One thing that's really cool about Neville is that he finds a subject that he really cares about, that he's really passionate about. He puts a lot of effort into it. All of a sudden, he starts to see success. You start to see him walking into the classroom more confidently, talking to his friends more confidently, standing up to the people who are bullying him. We met a Neville. This was a student he was in grad school when we met with him. He had gone to a high school that was so resource poor that they didn't have a library. So he had never had a relationship with a librarian. The library wasn't top of mind when he was conducting research. He went to community college, and again, he didn't turn to the library for his needs because it just wasn't part of his experience. His junior year of community college, he found the topic of computational fluid dynamics. He was so excited about this topic. His enthusiasm was tangible. I could understand very little of what he was actually talking about, but I was right there with him. That was when he turned the corner, and that's actually when he went to the library, because he said, you know what, this is something I'm really passionate about. This is something I definitely want to pursue. I want to do everything I can to build the skills I need to be successful. He turned to the library. He actually started a personal relationship with the librarian. He's currently getting his PhD in computational fluid dynamics, and he will soon be a professor in the topic. I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, but that's exactly how it turns out for Neville. Except he studies herbology, in case you didn't know that already. Let's talk about Harry. Harry is a golden child. He is literally the chosen one. He's the boy who lived. He's a student athlete. He's the headmaster's protege. He has so much going on. He is literally too busy saving people's lives to do his own homework. He develops a strong relationship with the school's headmaster. He starts to see a future for himself outside of his school assignments, outside of the end of the school year, outside of graduation, and he says, okay, there's actually a goal that I want to achieve out in the world. There's a life that I want to build for myself. I need to do things a certain way to get myself there. And that's how he turns the corner. Okay, this is one of my favorites because we definitely met a Fred and George. Fred and George are your typical non-users. They are rule breakers, they are creative thinkers, they are by no means lazy, they are absolutely smart, but they are not interested in school and their future actually lies elsewhere. They are entrepreneurs. They leave school to start their own business. Again, sorry if I'm spoiling it for you, but you probably should have read it by now anyway. We met, okay, so he was a high school student getting ready to go to college. He already had a successful app on the market. And his goal, he's going to business school, minoring in political science, extremely ambitious. His goal was to have a product on the market by the time he graduated from college. I Google him every 6 months because I'm like, this kid has, I mean, maybe that's not ethical. I'm not telling anyone his name, but I want to see, like, this kid is going places, and I'm betting he won't have to finish college to get there. So I just want to know. Okay. Those are my personas. As I mentioned, I will be embodying Hermione today, partially because that's just who I am inside, but also because all of these characters at one point or another turn to Hermione for support so she can actually speak to the habits and needs of the majority of her cohort. Thank you.